The Geet Ruler episode number 84 explanation. Although this shattered continent appeared to be in a fragmented state, its surface area was still indescribably vast and boundless. Only after they had started on their journey towards the direction of the Desolation Spiritual Academy indicated by the Academy plaque was Mu Chen and his group able to precisely experience this fact. After journeying for an entire day, the group from the Desolation Spiritual Academy had yet to appear within the range of their spiritual senses, something which caused Mu Chen to turn somewhat speechless. From the looks of it, this shattered continent might not be smaller than the Northern Heavens continent. Furthermore, it was said that this was just a fragment of the entire shattered continent. God knows exactly how vast and boundless the complete shattered continent was in the ancient antiquity. Indeed, it truly lived up to its name as one of the largest continents of the ancient Great Thousand Worlds. While spending the entire day journeying, Mu Chen's group had bumped into quite a few groups along the way. Those groups from the various great spiritual academies that have come here had all been completely dispersed throughout this continent, rushing forth on this fragment like swarms of locusts. As they attempted to snatch the points of other groups in a crazed fashion, extremely intense battles erupted all over the continent. Just the number of life-and-death fights Mu Chen's group had seen on their journey had already reached the low hundreds, an extremely large number. Along the way, they had similarly bumped into groups that had tried to target them. Towards these groups that had served themselves to his doorsteps, Mu Chen seemed to be all too welcome about it. In their journey, dozens of groups suffered defeat in their hands, allowing Mu Chen's group to gain over 300 more points, bringing their total point count close to 800. However, 800 points was still a considerable distance away from the top 16. That's because, in the short span of a day, the total amount of points held by the top 16 had increased at an astonishing rate. The first place was still held by the Myriad Phoenix Spiritual Academies group led by Wen Qingxian, with them unexpectedly having 3,300 points. As for the 16th place, it had also risen to 1,500 points. At the same time, just as what Mu Chen had said, within the short span of a day, the top 16 continued to shift and change. Some of the groups that had initially revealed themselves in the rankings were quickly cleansed one after another by even stronger groups. Clearly, those groups that were genuinely strong and power had started to gradually flex their muscles. As for the Desolation Spiritual Academy group targeted by Mu Chen, they had miraculously managed to stick on resiliently in the top 16, with the only change being their drop from 9th to 11th place. Nevertheless, they had not fallen out of the top 16 within this day. Seeing this, Mu Chen felt slightly shocked and astonished. From the looks of it, it seemed that he had truly underestimated this group that came from the Desolation Spiritual Academy. Under the assaults from strong and powerful groups from time after time again, they were still able to maintain such a rank in the top 16. Clearly, they genuinely possessed some skill and ability. Nevertheless, it was all good for Mu Chen's group. If all of a sudden, the group from the Desolation Spiritual Academy had dropped out of the top 16, their day's worth of pursuit would have become all for naught. Whoosh! Numerous rays of light shot across the horizon. Mu Chen, we've found the group from the Desolation Spiritual Academy. As he hurriedly shot across the skies, suddenly, Xu Huang's pleasantly surprised voice rang out. Hearing that, Mu Chen brought his academy plaque out. Indeed, after noticing the group from the Desolation Spiritual Academy, a change unexpectedly happened on the approximate direction originally shown on it, changing into a definitive and precise location. Northwest, 300 kilometers. We've finally found them. Seeing this, a faint smile appeared on Mu Chen's face, before abruptly increasing his speed rapidly with the wave of his sleeve. Increase speed and get ready. Whoosh! Whoosh! 5 rays of light drastically increased their speed, shooting across the horizon like stars chasing after the moon. After tens of minutes later, Mu Chen's group gradually reduced their speed, while spiritual energy gushed out from their entire bodies, their gazes turning into ones of caution and vigilance. A group ranked in the top 16 was just like a magnet. They believed that the people eyeing this group would absolutely not be them alone. Therefore, they naturally had to be more careful as they approached. If not, just a slight gap of their vigilance would result in the hunter turning into the hunted. Such a reversal in roles would truthfully be too much of a joke to make. There's quite a few groups present in this region. Luo Li brought a whiff of fragrance as she came close to Mu Chen. As her beautiful eyes swept across this stretch of the world, she spoke out in a soft voice. Something's a little amiss. The number of people rushing towards this group seems to be somewhat too many. A faint wrinkle appeared on Mu Chen's forehead as he nodded his head. He had similarly sensed those vague and obscured spiritual energy fluctuations, of which there were a considerable number of them. Clearly, those people had the same goal as Mu Chen, which caused some suspicion to grow in him. Why would the group from the Desolation Spiritual Academy be that popular? Bang! Just as Mu Chen was deep in thought, suddenly, astonishing spiritual energy fluctuations erupted from the depths of the stretch of towering mountains before them. There seemed to be people fighting over there. Crossing gazes with Luo Li, Mu Chen immediately shot over. In a matter of minutes, they arrived within the mountain depths. As they appeared within the mountainous depths and swept their gazes out, they felt slightly shocked as numerous groups were currently engaged in battle in the air, which was the source for those astonishing spiritual energy fluctuations. That's the group from the Desolation Spiritual Academy. They've actually been encircled? We're too late, exclaimed Xu Huang. Narrowing his eyes, Mu Chen looked over, only to see that there were actually 5 groups present in the air. However, 4 of the groups seemed to be attacking towards the same target, collaborating to encircle the group within the center. As for the group being encircled, it was precisely the target of Mu Chen's group, the group from the Desolation Spiritual Academy. At this moment, the group from the Desolation Spiritual Academy appeared exceedingly miserable. The 4 groups that had surrounded them were extremely strong, with every single group possessing strength that wasn't weaker to them. With the 4 of them collaborating together, it seemed as if the group from the Desolation Spiritual Academy was suppressed to the point of being unable to offer an ounce of resistance. Furthermore, what shocked Mu Chen's group the most was the actual presence of over 100 groups standing in the skies above the surrounding mountains and cliffs, locking their sights towards the fight happening in the skies. Precisely speaking, they should be staring covetously at the group from the Desolation Spiritual Academy. However, due to the 4 teams encircling the one from the Desolation Spiritual Academy, they didn't dare to be too reckless in taking action. This entire scene appeared somewhat strange and weird. Oh! One of the groups actually from the Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy. Zhao Qingshan suddenly exclaimed. Hearing his words, both Mu Chen and Luo Li gawked as they turned their sights over. Indeed, they discovered that there was one group within the 4 that was dressed in the academy uniform of the Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy. This group clearly came from the Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy, one of the 5 great academies. However, upon setting his sights on one of the figures within the group, the expression present of Mu Chen's face instantly changed. The group from the Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy was clearly the strongest within the 5 groups fighting it out in the sky. Despite that, however, they did not truly take action, only appearing to stay in an enforcing state, completely sealing off the escape route of the Desolation Spiritual Academy. Within their ranks, all of them had faces filled with ridiculement, having looks as if they were cats that were playing around with mice. That's why those groups only dared to observe from afar, not daring to take action. So the people from the Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy are here, said Mu Fengyang as he wrinkled his forehead. These damnable fellows actually dare to snatch our prey. We've been staring at this group from the Desolation Spiritual Academy for an entire day already. Mu Chen. Looking at Mu Chen, Xu Huang instantly gawked, as he noticed that the former's expression had unexpectedly started to slowly turn dark, while a chilling shadow gushed out from within his black pupils. Beside him, Luo Li's beautiful face had also turned slightly frosty as her jade-like hand slowly clenched her longsword tightly. What's the matter? Asked Xu Huang and the other 2 in doubt, not knowing why Mu Chen and Luo Li would flip their faces out of the blue. Ha ha! We've bumped into an old acquaintance from the spiritual road, replied Mu Chen with a faint smile, yet was one that was perfused with dense chilling intent. Qiu Beihai. I never imagined that fellow had actually entered the Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy. A sliver of chilling intent flashed within Luo Li's beautiful eyes as she softly spoke out. Within the spiritual road, he was the capable aide of Ji Xian. When you were kicked out of the spiritual road, he brought along some people to surround me, which resulted in me cutting of a few fingers of his. In the end, He had also reached the final point of the spiritual road, and was given the title of Sea King. However, at the final point, I was busy dealing with Ji Xian, so I had ignored him. However, this person truly possesses some capable points. Hearing her words, the chilling intent in Mu Chen's eyes grew even more pronounced as he said, "There's nothing to worry about. Looks like we're bound by quite some fate, being able to bump into him here." Xu Huang and the other two looked at each other. From what they could hear, it seemed as if Mu Chen and Luo Li had some past grievances with a fellow from the Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy. They quietly asked, "Exactly, who are we dealing with? The Desolation Spiritual Academy or the Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy?" Although the group from the Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy seemed to be more thorny than the Desolation Spiritual Academy, Mu Chen was their captain. As long as he decided to deal with whomever, they would naturally have no qualms to pull out their knives and head towards their target. "Xu Huang, go take a look and find out exactly what is going on." Mu Chen spoke out in a soft voice. The situation before them seemed somewhat strange and weird. There were so many groups that had rushed over for the group from the Desolation Spiritual Academy. Even the group from the Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy had come over. Nodding his head, Xu Huan instantly rushed out, rapidly returning after 10+ minutes. As shock and astonishment surfaced within his eyes, he spoke out, "This Desolation Spiritual Academy seems to have obtained some information about the relics from the ancient antiquity. These fellows have all come here due to that information." Information about the relics from the ancient antiquity? Mu Chen gawked upon hearing that, before his expression turned strange. This Desolation Spiritual Academy couldn't have such good luck, right? They were actually able to obtain such an opportunity. Having arrived in this place not too long ago and being able to obtain such important information. No wonder why they would attract so many wolves to them. What should we do? Zhao Qingshan and the other two were eager to take action. Regardless of the abundant points that the Desolation Spiritual Academy had or the information in their hands, both had already garnered their interest. Faintly narrowing his eyes, Mu Chen gave a stare at those few figures in the sky. Waving his hand, he replied with a cold smirk, "Let's go." With a move of his body, he instantly shot across the sky, with Luo Li, Xu Huang and the other two in hot pursuit. Whoosh! Without any kind of obstruction, Mu Chen had rushed straight towards the combat zone. Upon their appearance in the skies, they instantly attracted the attention of everyone present, before cries of exclamation rang out. "Is that the group from the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy? Damn it! Those fellows had also come over for the information. This makes it even harder to get it now." Due to the appearance of Mu Chen and his group, the intense fights taking place in the combat zone in the sky started to slow down, as the faces of the group from the Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy started to sink down. "Captain, that group's unexpectedly from the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. What should we do? Do you want to deal with them? The Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy has been declining increasingly over the past few years. If they dare to take action, dispose of them." Looking towards a youth within their ranks, the few youths from the Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy group started a lively discussion about what to do. The face of the youth they had spoken to turned somewhat dark, while wrinkles started to appear on his forehead. Looking towards the group that was getting increasingly closer to them, he swept a sharp gaze over. However, in the next instant, the expression on his face abruptly contorted as dumbfound shock flashed within his eyes, before he exclaimed out, "Mu Chen? Luo Li?" As Mu Chen and his group neared the combat zone, they slowly came to a stop. Looking towards the youth whose face was contorted upon their appearance, a smile brimming with chilling intent surfaced on Mu Chen's face as she said, "Qiu Beihai, we finally meet again." The dark-faced Qiu Beihai stared with daggers drawn towards Mu Chen and Luo Li. After quite a while, he spoke out with a dark tone. "Mu Chen, I truly never imagined that you, who had been kicked out halfway in the spiritual road, would actually still be able to enter one of the 5 great academies. You truly are formidable." However, all of a sudden, a cold sneer rose from the corner of Qiu Beihai's mouth as he looked with an amused fashion at Mu Chen as he continued speaking, "It seems that you've fallen behind. Heavenly completion stage late phase, huh? Ha ha. You still dare to enter the Great Spiritual Academy tournament with that level of strength? You're not afraid that your renowned title of the Blood Calamity of the Spiritual Road would bring an overflowing amount of great disasters for you? As of now, Ji Xian has already far surpassed you. If you are to bump into him, he. After a previous bout of being overwhelmed with shock, Qiu Beihai clearly noticed Mu Chen's current level of strength, causing that fear and shock to gradually dissipate away. What replaced it was a feeling of happiness. Heavenly completion stage late phase? Ha ha! As of now, the blood calamity that had caused him to feel incredibly threatened in the spiritual road had fallen to such a degree. A faint frosty intent radiated from Luo Li's beautiful eyes as she spoke out, Qiu Beihai, looks like you don't want to keep your remaining finger, right? Hearing her words, Qiu Beihai's face instantly contorted as he grounded and clenched his teeth towards Luo Li, his hands being tightly clenched. Both of his hands had one finger missing, being chopped off by her during the spiritual road when he had brought along people to surround her. Ever since then, this had always been the pain in his heart. However, he possessed some dread and fear towards the latter. From his senses, he could tell that the current Luo Li had clearly passed her human body disaster, making her cultivation not one bit weaker than him. Suppressing the anger and fury in his heart, Qiu Beihai gave a sneer before replying. I've heard that your Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy has only sent 2 groups this time around? Ha ha! Looks like the title of being one of the 5 great academies will be stripped of your Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy after this Great Spiritual Academy tournament. I can't be bothered to deal with you guys. Bring your people and scram off. Mu Chen, if I were you, I'd be smart enough to find a place and hide so as to not bump into Ji Xian. If not, you'll be totally smashed up and beaten by him. At this moment, your great title of being the blood calamity of the spiritual road has been completely thrown into oblivion. What did you say? Upon hearing his words, the faces of Xu Huang and the other 2 instantly contorted as they furiously roared out in reply. Don't you understand what I've just said? With a sneer, Qiu Beihai waved his hands, causing his 4 group members to converge around him. Of the 4, one of them slowly walked forward, standing beside the former as he shot a ridiculing gaze towards Mu Chen's group. You're only a group with 1 human body disaster member in it. Ha ha. Indeed, the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy's unable to make the cut anymore. The youth that appeared to be older than Qiu Beihai crossed his arms in front of his chest as he let out a mocking laugh. In the next instant, boundless spiritual energy fluctuations radiated from his body. From the looks of it, his strength appeared to be on the same level as Qiu Beihai, having passed his human body disaster as well. In their group, there were 2 people that had passed their human body disaster, with the other 3 being of heavenly completion stage late phase. From their outward appearance, their lineup seemed to be stronger than that of Mu Chen's group. Furthermore, they still had an alliance with 3 other groups. Although the 3 other groups weren't as strong as them, every single one of them possessed a person who had passed their human body disaster. Although they might split up their forces to deal with the group from the Desolation Spiritual Academy, their remaining forces would absolutely deal with and cause the group from the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy to lose all temper at all. None of them believed that this group from the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy would dare to have the heart to take any action under the suppression of their lineup. At the back, the group from the Desolation Spiritual Academy being surrounded by the 3 groups could also feel the confrontation occurring over there. In the next moment, one of the groups peeled away, with their captain, sizing up Mu Chen's group with a smile on his face that brimmed with provocation. Turning his gaze to Luo Li, his eyes started to wander around her alluring body as he whistled with a grin, before speaking out, I truly never imagined that there would be such a beautiful girl in the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. I truly can't find such quality in our Great Cauldron Spiritual Academy. Ha ha. Brother Beihai, do you still need help? Asked the youth as he looked towards Qiu Beihai with a grin. At the same time, spiritual energy fluctuations started to perfuse from his body. Unexpectedly, he was also an expert that had passed his human body disaster. The 2 teams stood right before Mu Chen's group, staring covetously at them like 2 ferocious tigers. Seeing this, the faces of Xu Huang and the other 2 slightly changed. If it was a one-on-one, they weren't afraid to face off against a group like the Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy. However, with the appearance of the group from the Great Cauldron Spiritual Academy, such a lineup was sufficient to change the entire situation. "It's just a slight trouble," replied Qiu Beihai with a smile, before looking towards Mu Chen in satisfaction. This was an opponent that had once made him feel immense pressure. However, at this very moment, thinking back about the times where he was being totally suppressed, he could not help feeling true pity for the latter. "Mu Chen, I advise you to tactfully leave. I don't have the heart to deal with you now." "Don't ask for trouble," said Qiu Beihai in an indifferent tone as he waved his hands. Seeing the appearance of Qiu Beihai waving his hands in indifference, Mu Chen could not help bursting into laughter. Tilting his head towards Luo Li, he asked her with a smile. "How should we split?" "Leave the group from the Great Cauldron Spiritual Academy to me," replied Luo Li with a sweet smile. "The whole group?" Hearing her reply, Mu Chen's eyebrows were faintly raised. "You don't believe me?" Luo Li shot a glance at Mu Chen. Waving the Luotian sword in her hand, she sweetly smiled while saying, "If we're to cross hands, you might not even be able to win against me." Hearing her words, Mu Chen smiled and nodded his head, saying, "Leave the 2 human body disaster fellows from the Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy to me. As for the other 3 people, deal with them, Zhu Huang, Feng Yang and Qing Shan. That shouldn't be a problem, right? After all, they were a group. Therefore, he can't let Zhu Huang and the other 2 sit on the side as he took action." "No problem." Zhu Huang and the other 2 nodded without the slightest hesitation. Other than Qiu Beihai and the other human body disaster expert in the group from the Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy, the remaining 3 were at Heavenly Completion Stage late phase, which was on the same level as Zhu Huang and the other 2. Thus, they would naturally not have any dread or fear in facing them. "Mu Chen, do not ignore my kindness." Seeing that Mu Chen had actually chose to completely ignore him and even went so far as to distribute their targets, Qiu Beihai's face instantly turned slightly ashen as he roared out in a chilly voice. "Ha ha, you truly a rampant, little girl. Do you really think that you'll be able to deal with our entire group by yourself?" The group captain from the Great Cauldron Spiritual Academy gave an insincere smile towards Luo Li. Although the former had passed her human body disaster, wanting to deal with his entire group was her indulging too much in fantasy. Within the skies, there were also the numerous groups present that were watching the commotion that was taking place. Furthermore, upon seeing that the group from the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy was actually wanting to deal with 2 groups by themselves, all of them felt shock and astonishment. Within the ranks of this Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, they had only one person that had passed her human body disaster. With such a lineup, they still dared to confront the Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy and the Great Cauldron Spiritual Academy at the same time? At the rear, upon discovering this scene, the 2 groups surrounding the Desolation Spiritual Academy immediately slowed down their assault slightly. Being able to enter the top 16 and last for a day under their encirclement, this group from the Desolation Spiritual Academy truly possessed considerable strength. Only with the encirclement by their 3 groups, with the Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy keeping watch at the back, were they able to suppress the group from the Desolation Spiritual Academy. However, from the looks of it now, with both the Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy and the Great Cauldron Spiritual Academy having left to deal with the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, they could barely suppress the Desolation Spiritual Academy with the strength of their 2 groups. Compared to the situation before, they wouldn't pose much of a threat now. Seemingly discovering the change in the situation, the group from the Desolation Spiritual Academy quietly took a breath of relief. If the previous situation had continued on, they might not have been able to last much longer. The group captain from the Desolation Spiritual Academy was a somewhat burly-built youth. Looking towards the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy's confrontation with the Great Cauldron Spiritual Academy not far from him, a faint flash sparkled within his eyes. As of now, the situation they were currently in was extremely unfavorable for them. If the 3 groups were to let the Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy join hands and go on the offensive against their group, the result would be extremely worrying for his group. However, at this very moment, they had no other method to hope that the group from the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy would truly be able to obstruct the Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy, as well as the Great Cauldron Spiritual Academy. This way, they might be able to obtain a chance to. Looking towards the somewhat ashen Qiu Beihai, Mu Chen smiled and shook his head. Slowing walking forward as he looked towards the slight wave of the former's hand, the smile at the corner of Mu Chen's mouth gradually appeared cold and fierce. Qiu Beihai, I've never been eye to eye with you before in the spiritual road, and it's the same in this place. In my eyes, you don't have the qualifications to jump and hop around in front of me. The veins on Qiu Beihai's face twitched and quivered while his gaze slowly turned malevolent. Okay. Let me see exactly who's the one with no qualifications to jump and hop around. Bang! Qiu Beihai's robes fluttered as boundless spiritual energy swept out from him. In the next instant, his gaze turned cold and sinister as he roared, "Kill them!" Bang! At the instant when his roar rang out, he had already shot forward. Clenching his hand tightly, a scarlet-red longsword appeared from within, while a fierce sword aura rushed towards the sky. Behind him, the face of the other human body disaster expert from the Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy turned frosty as he also shot forward. One left, one right, rushing towards Mu Chen just like two hawks. "Come, little girl. Let me see how you're gonna deal with our group by yourself," sneered the captain of the Great Cauldron Spiritual Academy group as he viciously stared at Luo Li. Whoosh! What replied to him was a swift and fierce sword aura in the shape of a silvery river. Splitting the skies apart, the chilling intent brought by it caused his face to instantly contort. With the clench of his hand, a black metal shield sparkling with spiritual light appeared right before him. Ding! Piercing explosively towards the metal shield, rays of brilliance sparkled from the sword aura as deep slash marks appeared on its surface. Seeing the deep slash marks on the surface of his metal shield, the eyelids of the Great Cauldron Spiritual Academy group captain furiously twitched. However, before he could regain his senses, a beautiful figure had already shot and appeared right before him like a spectre. As sword shadows shot out, they heavily impacted on the surface of his metal shield. Puff! That was a spiritual weapon that possessed an extremely powerful defense. However, under those sword shadows, they appeared to be as weak as tofu. As the sword shadows shot out, they had unexpectedly pierced through the metal shield. The sharp tip of the sword came to a stop an inch before the forehead of the Great Cauldron Spiritual Academy captain, with the sword aura radiating off of it, causing a drop of blood to drip down from the center of his brows. Finally, his face furiously contorted as dread and fear flashed within his eyes as he furiously roared out. "Move!" Immediately, the group from the Great Cauldron Spiritual Academy shot out from behind him, launching a powerful assault that encompassed the beautiful figure before them. Vast and powerful spiritual energies swept across the horizon like tidal waves, hiding the skies and covering the earth. Chilling rays of light sparkled from the scarlet-red longsword in Qiu Beihai's hands. Clearly, this was a fairly high-grade spiritual weapon, brimming with sharpness that appeared to be able to slice space apart. Locking his dark gaze on Mu Chen, in a flash, he appeared right before the latter, thrusting a stab out. Whoosh! Torrential rays of sword aura gushed out as the longsword transformed into countless sword shadows. Akin to a rainbow, they hid the skies and covered the earth as they completely surrounded the Mu Chen's vital spots. As the light coming from the sword shadows were reflected in Mu Chen's eyes, a fierce shadow abruptly gushed out from within. In the next instant, with a furious clench of his hand, a black heavy spear appeared from within. The heavy spear appeared malevolent-looking, with black dragon scales covering its entire surface. The head of the spear was in the shape of a dragon's tongue, with sharp dragon teeth forming its tips, appearing exceedingly malevolent. Upon the appearance of the black heavy spear, an ominous aura started to radiate from it, causing the surrounding space to slightly tremble. This black heavy spear was naturally his spoils of war after killing Mo Xingtian, the devouring demonic dragon spear. This long spear was a genuine absolute-grade spiritual weapon, possessing extraordinary might. During that day, Mo Xingtian had relied on this spear to receive the Great Meru demonic pillar in Mu Chen's hands. Although that was due to Mu Chen not daring to remove the seal on the Great Meru demonic pillar, this was more than sufficient to show how formidable this devouring demonic dragon spear was. Roar! As the devouring demonic dragon spear appeared in Mu Chen's hand, with a shake of its body, a dragon roar brimming with ominous aura seemed to resound across the surroundings. In the next instant, a spear was thrusted from Mu Chen, with black rays of light howling out from the spear tip akin to a powerful current, immediately washing away the sword shadows that had hid the skies and covered the earth. Whoosh! As the ominous aura perfused from the spear shadows shooting out, a sliver of a chilling glint pierced through the torrential shadow swords. Unexpectedly, it shattered through the surrounding space, howling straight towards Qiu Beihai. As the chilling glint neared him, the face of Qiu Beihai slightly changed. Clearly, he could sense the astonishing killing might that the devouring demonic dragon spear in Mu Chen's hand possessed. In the next instant, he stopped his movements, while the scarlet-red longsword within his hand was hastily thrust out. Fresh blood seemed to circulate on the surface of the sword, bringing a ray of blood-red light that pierced with incomparable accuracy towards the sliver of chilling glint. Ding! As the spear and sword collided against each other, sparks flew about as incomparably fierce gales formed and swept out. Ripples seemed to fluctuate in the space surrounding the two as rampant spiritual energies transformed into a hurricane, sweeping out from the point of contact between the spear and the sword. A tremble shook through the sword-wielding hand of Qiu Beihai as the malevolence on his face grew much more solemn. After truly crossing hands, he was able to feel a sensation of suppression coming from within Mu Chen's body. That kind of power was absolutely not something that a person of ordinary heavenly completion stage late phase would be able to possess. Bastard! Clenching his teeth, Qiu Beihai fiercely roared out, "Shenjun, take action! Die for me!" Just as Qiu Beihai's roar rang out, suddenly, a figure surfaced behind Mu Chen. That was precisely the other person that passed the human body disaster from the Airshore Heaven Spiritual Academy group. At this moment, lightning seemed to sparkle from his hands as they appeared to weigh a ton, furiously patting down towards Mu Chen's back in an aim to deal maximum damage. Bang! Palm winds howled out as even the air had exploded apart. Clearly, this Shenjun wasn't just some average character. Upon taking action, his attack was fierce and lethal, attempting to collaborate with Qiu Beihai to rapidly defeat Mu Chen. Palm winds were sweeping out from his back at lightning speed. With a chilling glint flashing within his eyes, Mu Chen turned around and sent a fist rumbling out, with black lightning arcing across his arm. At this moment, black lightning liquid seemed to flow around his fingers, with the energy they contained being more than sufficient to smash the skies and rend the earth. Bang! The fist that Mu Chen sent rumbling out smashed head-on against the palm winds coming from Shenjun. At the instant when they collided, it appeared as if a mountain had collapsed as energy shock waves visible to the naked eye radiated from the point of impact. Amongst the peals of thunder ringing out, Shenjun's face abruptly contorted, as the frightening energy radiating from Mu Chen's fist had instantly suppressed those of his. Furthermore, what's more frightening was that the physique of the latter was exceedingly tyrannical. It was to such a degree, that even he, who had passed through his human body disaster, was unable to match up to. How could his physique be that powerful? A shadow of dumbstruck horror flashed across Shenjun's face as he immediately tried to retreat. Scram! However, at the very instant when he was just about to make his move, a chilling smile appeared on Mu Chen's face as his fist ferociously rumbled out. Bang! Intense pain surged up Shenjun's arm as a frightening wave of energy poured into it, before he was unexpectedly sent flying back hundreds of meters by this fist of Mu Chen's. A patch of purplish shade appeared on his palm as intense pain radiated out from it, making him feel as if his arm had been smashed apart. Hua! This scene instantly caused waves of clamoring to ring out across the skies, as the faces of those groups paying attention to the combat zone in the skies instantly turned to ones of shock and astonishment. Who would have guessed that Mu Chen, who appeared to be only of heavenly completion stage late phase, would actually be able to send Shenjun flying in a 1-to-2 situation? Let's not talk about a heavenly completion stage late phase, even a person who had passed his human body disaster would be hard-pressed to achieve such a level of strength. Indeed, this Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy's Mu Chen isn't simple. That's why he dared to provoke the group from the Airshore Heaven Spiritual Academy. This time, we're in for a good show. The eyes of all the groups lit up with dense feelings of interest. Previously, they had felt that this group from the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy seemed to be weaker than the groups from the other 5 great academies. However, this youth that appeared to be only of heavenly completion stage late phase had actually possessed such frightening combat prowess. Heavenly Sea Sword Art, Heaven-Burying Sword. Qiu Beihai's face had also contorted due to the scene before him, which caused him to immediately roar out as he sent his sword out to smash back the devouring demonic dragon spear in Mu Chen's hands. With a shake of its body, the sword was thrust out like a brush, carving an actual blood-red sword rune in the space before it. Under the sword rune, a howl rang out from the sword, as it transformed into a giant blood-red sword, furiously chopping down towards Mu Chen. This chop contained considerable might. Before it could hit its target, the mountain peak below it had already been sliced in half by the sword aura that perfused out of it. Mu Chen's eyes slightly sparkled, and with a move, a dragon's shadow surfaced below his feet. With a flash, he disappeared akin to a spectre. As the sword light flashed over, the only thing it struck was air, with not the slightest bit of the expected result. Shenjun, careful! As his sword struck air, Qiu Beihai's face abruptly contorted as he roared out. Just as his roar rang out, Shenjun had already seen Mu Chen's figure appear in the air above him like a spectre. At this moment, an indifferent smile had surfaced on the latter's handsome face as he said, "I'll deal with you first." Bang! Boundless spiritual energy hid the skies and covered the earth as it gushed out from Mu Chen's body. As of now, his spiritual energy was completely different than from the past, no longer being of a jet black color, but a fusion of black and white. From the looks of it, they were just like the fusion of yin and yang, appearing exceedingly strange and mysterious. Furthermore, this black and white spiritual energy was clearly much more condensed and tyrannical than his spiritual energy from before. As spiritual energy blossomed from Mu Chen, it transformed into a stretch of starry skies behind his back. Within the starry skies, four gigantic bestial shadows started to condense, before finally transforming into rays of light. Shooting out, they formed an incomparably gigantic divine seal in the air above Shenjun. For God's constellation scripture, divine seal of the four gods. A chilling glint flashed within Mu Chen's eyes as he clapped his hands together, before abruptly pressing his hand seal down. Bang! As the four bestial shadows raised their heads and roared, the divine seal erupted in a bright and resplendent divine light, while the spiritual aura in this region rapidly fled away. Looking towards the divine seal that was pressed down on him from above, Shenjun's face furiously contorted. Clearly, he could sense how frightening this attack of Mu Chen's was. In the next instant, not daring to show the slightest bit of neglect, he gave a furious roar, clapping his hands together as spiritual energy swept out from him without the slightest bit of restraint. Heavenly Light Revolving Seal. Boundless spiritual energy swept out, transforming into a gigantic 100-meter wide halo above Shenjun. A gigantic glowing seal seemed to condense within the halo as powerful fluctuations started to radiate out from it. In the next instant, howling out, the halo smashed head-on against the divine seal pressing down from above. Bang! As the two smashed against each other, spatial fluctuations swept out. However, very quickly, the face of Shenjun drastically contorted as he could see the seal within the halo collapsing at an astonishing speed under the suppression of the divine seal. This divine seal seemed to have some kind of sealing power incorporated in it, causing his spiritual energy to become suppressed and sealed upon contact with it. An indifferent smile appeared on Mu Chen's face. When he was still in the realm of heavenly completion stage initial phase, the For God's constellation scripture he had unleashed was able to force Mo Xingtian to use his final card. As of now, with his cultivation having progressed to heavenly completion stage late phase. Furthermore, this Shenjun clearly wasn't as strong and powerful as Mo Xingtian. Wanting to block and resist his attack head-on was clearly a lunatic's dream. Suppress? Mu Chen gave a roar as he furiously pressed his palms down. Bang! As the divine seal instantly came shrouding over, the seal within the halo was completely crushed. A deathly pale shade appeared on Shenjun's face as he retreated back in an attempt to evade. However, at this time, it was clear that it was already too late to evade, as the divine seal came howling down, instantly pressing on his body. Puff! A mouthful of blood was spewed out from Shenjun's mouth as the boundless spiritual energy fluctuations around his body rapidly declined. Glowing runes started to surface around his body, appearing akin to seals, causing the spiritual energy within his body to be completely sealed up. With his spiritual energy rapidly dissipating away, Shenjun immediately dropped down from the skies, landing heavily on the mountain peak. As the entire mountain peak intensely shook, cracks appeared while a giant hole appearing in everyone's view. Shen Jun struggled within it, his body covered in blood as he laid down on the ground. Clearly, he was seriously injured. Hiss. Across the skies, some groups quietly sucked in a breath of cold air, their gazes towards Mu Chen being overwhelmed with shock. Who would have guessed that the latter would be that vicious in his offensive? Upon taking action, he had displayed such a powerful move, instantly causing a human body disaster expert to suffer serious injuries. After sealing Shen Jun up, Mu Chen calmly turned around, chilling intent surfacing within his eyes as he looked towards Qiu Beihai, whose dark expression started to fluctuate, while dumbfounded shock filled his eyes, and said in a soft voice, "I've heard that you've went to surround and attack Luo Li after I had left the spiritual road." A faint smile started to appear on Mu Chen's face, merely that was cold and frosty, akin to the edge of a blade, causing Qiu Beihai's scalp to turn numb. "Since that's the case, I want all of your remaining fingers." This episode ends here. Thank you for watching.